The envelope felt heavy in Olivia Torres's hands, though it weighed almost nothing. Official government letterhead always had that effect, the weight of authority, of decisions made by strangers who held your future in their palms. She stood in the cramped storage room of the Greenwich Village gallery where she worked, surrounded by bubble wrap and wooden crates, and read the words that would upend her world. Notice of visa irregularity. You have 14 days to resolve your status or depart the United States. 14 days. 2 weeks to pack up 3 years of dreams, or find a miracle. Olivia's hands trembled as she set down the letter on a paint-stained worktable. Around her, half-finished sculptures waited in various stages of completion, twisted metal forms that spoke of movement and emotion, pieces of her soul rendered in bronze and steel. She'd come to New York from Guadalajara with a student visa and a scholarship to the Metropolitan Institute of Fine Arts. She'd graduated top of her class. She'd landed this gallery job. She'd been so careful, so precise with every form, every deadline, but somewhere in the machinery of immigration bureaucracy, something had gone wrong. A clerical error, they called it. As if her entire existence could be reduced to a misplaced stamp, the gallery's main floor hummed with activity above her. Opening night for a new exhibition. Collectors in expensive shoes sipping wine from crystal glasses, discussing art investments while she hid in the basement, contemplating her erasure from this country she'd grown to love. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diego, her younger brother. Mama wants to know if you're coming home for Christmas. I told her you're too busy being famous. Are you okay? You sound weird lately. Olivia couldn't tell him. Not yet. Diego was in medical school back home, studying on a scholarship their parents had sacrificed everything to secure. The pride in their mother's voice when she talked about her children, my son, the future doctor. My daughter, the artist in New York, would shatter into disappointment if Olivia came home defeated. She wiped her eyes quickly as footsteps descended the stairs. Her boss, Margaret Chen, appeared with her phone pressed to her ear, gesturing urgently. No, Mr. Ashford, we can have the Rothstein piece delivered by Friday. Yes, fully insured. Of course. Margaret ended the call and fixed Olivia with an appraising look. You've been crying. What's wrong? Olivia hesitated, then handed her the letter. Margaret read it, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. Oh, honey. This is serious. Do you have a lawyer? I can't afford one. There has to be something. Margaret paused, a strange look crossing her face. Wait. This is absolutely insane, but... She glanced at her phone, then back at Olivia. That call I just took. Nathan Ashford. Do you know who he is? Olivia shook her head. Investment banker. Old money family. His mother practically runs the New York Social Registry. Margaret's eyes gleamed with the light of a forming plan. He was just here last week, looking at your sculpture, the one with the birds taking flight. Spent 20 minutes staring at it. Bought it on the spot for $50,000. Olivia blinked. She'd known the piece sold, but not who bought it or for how much. The gallery took their commission, and she'd received enough to pay 3 months' rent. He's also, Margaret continued carefully, apparently under enormous pressure from his family to settle down. His assistant, Rebecca, let it slip over cocktails. Said the family board won't approve his promotion to CEO unless he demonstrates stability and commitment to traditional values. Translation, they want him married. The implication hung in the air between them. You cannot be suggesting, Olivia started. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying that sometimes opportunity arrives in unexpected packages. Margaret squeezed her shoulder. Go upstairs. Circulate. He's here tonight, and he's been asking about you. The man in the perfect suit. The gallery's main floor glowed with warm light, the white walls providing the perfect canvas for bold, contemporary art. Olivia moved through the crowd, hyper-aware of her paint-stained jeans and worn boots among the evening gowns and tailored suits. She told herself she was looking for the refreshment table, not scanning for a face she'd only seen in business magazines. She found him standing before a massive abstract painting, hands in his pockets, head tilted in concentration. Nathan Ashford looked exactly like his photos, tall, dark-haired, with the kind of sharp features that suggested both intelligence and arrogance. His suit probably cost more than her rent. Everything about him screamed old money and careful control, from his perfectly knotted tie to the expensive watch glinting at his wrist. "It's trying too hard," he said without looking at her. "The artist wants you to feel chaos, but chaos can't be manufactured. It has to be real." Olivia stopped beside him, studying the painting with fresh eyes. "Maybe that's the point. We spend our whole lives trying to control the uncontrollable. This is what it looks like when we fail." Now he turned to her, and his eyes, a startling gray-blue, assessed her with the same intensity he'd given the painting. "You made the bird sculpture." It wasn't a question. Olivia Torres. Nathan Ashford. His handshake was firm, brief, professional. "I put your piece in my office. My assistant hates it. Says it makes her uncomfortable." "Good. It's supposed to." The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. "It's about breaking free, isn't it? The way the metal seems to be tearing itself apart to become something that can fly." She nodded, surprised he understood. Most collectors bought her work because it looked impressive, not because they connected with its meaning. "Margaret mentioned you might need legal assistance," he said, his tone casual but his gaze sharp. "Immigration issues?" Olivia's face burned. Of course Margaret had already approached him. "I don't need charity. I'm not offering any. I'm offering a business transaction." He gestured toward a quieter corner of the gallery. "Can we talk privately?" Against her better judgment, Olivia followed him to a small alcove near the gallery's rear windows. The city lights spread out below them, millions of lives moving in their separate orbits. Nathan spoke quietly, methodically, like a man presenting a merger proposal. "I need to appear married. You need to stay in the country. I'm prepared to offer you a legal marriage, purely contractual, for a period of 2 years. You'll receive a green card, full financial support, and your own space. In exchange, you'll attend necessary social functions as my wife and maintain the appearance of a legitimate relationship." Olivia stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "You're insane." "I'm practical. My family controls a billion-dollar investment firm. The board," which Nathan pulled a card from his wallet, heavy stock, embossed lettering. "You have 14 days, according to your notice. I need an answer in 48 hours. If you agree, I'll have my lawyers begin the paperwork immediately." He walked away, leaving her holding his card and her disbelief in equal measure. Around her, the gallery buzzed with meaningless conversation. Someone laughed. Wine glasses clinked. Olivia looked down at the card, Nathan Ashford, Managing Director, Ashford Capital Group. Below it, he'd written a phone number in precise handwriting. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Diego: "Seriously, are you okay?" She typed back, "I will be. I promise." But as she stood there, clutching a business card that represented either salvation or catastrophe, Olivia wasn't sure if she was lying to her brother or to herself. The law office smelled of leather and old money, the kind of place where decisions worth millions were made over handshakes and signed with fountain pens. Olivia sat in a chair that probably cost more than her entire apartment, trying not to fidget while Nathan's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Holloway, explained the contract spread before them. "This is a standard prenuptial agreement with some unusual modifications," Patricia said, her tone suggesting nothing about this situation was standard. "Mr. Ashford retains all assets acquired before and during the marriage. Mrs. Ashford," she paused, glancing at Olivia, will receive a monthly stipend of $10,000 for personal expenses, separate from household costs, which Mr. Ashford will cover entirely. $10,000 a month. Olivia had never seen that much money in her life, let alone had it for personal expenses. She felt Nathan watching her, gauging her reaction. The marriage, Patricia continued, is contracted for a minimum of 24 months. Either party may terminate after that period with 60 days' notice. Upon termination, Mrs. Ashford receives a one-time settlement of $200,000 and retains her permanent residency status, provided all conditions of the agreement have been met. Conditions? Olivia asked, finding her voice. Patricia flipped to another page. Attendance at required social functions. Maintenance of the marital residence. No public disclosure of the arrangement's true nature. No romantic involvement with third parties during the contract period. She looked up. Standard fidelity clause, essentially. Olivia nearly laughed at the absurdity. Fidelity in a fake marriage. And if I break these conditions? The contract terminates immediately. You receive $50,000, enough to retain your legal status, but forfeit the remainder. It was a cage made of money and legality, but it was still a cage. Olivia looked at Nathan, who sat with perfect posture in his perfect suit, expression unreadable. What happens if you break the conditions? For the first time, Patricia smiled slightly. Mr. Ashford forfeits nothing, but you receive double the settlement, $400,000, and retain all benefits. That seems unfair to you, Olivia said to Nathan. He shrugged. I don't plan to break any conditions. Do you? She held his gaze. In the 3 days since the gallery, they'd met twice to discuss logistics. Both meetings had been brief, professional, almost cold. He'd shown her the apartment where she'd live, a stunning penthouse in Tribeca with a spare room he'd converted into a studio space for her work. He'd introduced her to Rebecca, his assistant, who'd sized Olivia up with the efficiency of someone scanning a barcode. But they hadn't discussed feelings, fears, or the strangeness of legally binding themselves to a stranger. It was all contracts and conditions, as if they were merging corporations instead of lives. No, Olivia said finally. I don't plan to break anything. Patricia slid 2 copies of the contract toward them, along with elegant pens. Then if you're both ready, we can proceed with signatures. Olivia picked up the pen. It was heavy, expensive, the kind of object that understood its own importance. Her hand hovered over the signature line. This was insane. She was about to marry a man she didn't know, didn't love, didn't even particularly like. She was selling 2 years of her life for safety and money and the chance to keep creating art in this city that had become her home. But the alternative was deportation, defeat, and the look in her mother's eyes when she admitted failure. She signed her name, Olivia Maria Torres. Nathan signed immediately after, Nathan James Ashford. Just like that, they were engaged to be married. Meeting the family. The engagement dinner at the Ashford family estate was Olivia's introduction to a world she'd only seen in movies. The house was a Georgian mansion in Connecticut, all white columns and manicured lawns, the kind of place where servants still existed and money whispered rather than shouted. Helen Ashford, Nathan's mother, waited in a sitting room that could have housed Olivia's entire childhood home. She was exactly what Olivia expected, elegant, cold, dressed in cream-colored silk with pearls at her throat. Her handshake was limp, her smile never reaching her eyes. How delightful to finally meet you, Olivia. Nathan has been so secretive. Helen's tone suggested secrecy was a character flaw. Do sit down. Tell me about your family. They sat on furniture that belonged in museums while a servant brought tea in china so delicate Olivia feared breathing on it. Nathan sat beside her, his hand finding hers, a gesture that looked natural but felt rehearsed. My father is a teacher, Olivia said carefully. My mother runs a small bakery in Guadalajara. My brother is in medical school. How charming. Education is so important. My father is a teacher, Olivia said carefully. My mother runs a small bakery in Guadalajara. My brother is in medical school. How charming. Education is so important. Helen's smile was patronizing. And you're an artist, I understand. What sort of art? Sculpture. I work primarily in metal. Oh, one of those modern abstract things. How interesting. Helen's tone suggested it was anything but. And how did you two meet? This was the story they'd rehearsed. Nathan took over smoothly. At a gallery opening. Olivia's work caught my eye. We started talking about art, and I realized she saw the world differently than anyone I'd ever met. Love at first sight? Helen's skepticism was barely veiled. More like recognition at first sight, Nathan said, squeezing Olivia's hand. Sometimes you just know. The performance was flawless, but Olivia felt like an actress fumbling her lines. Every answer felt wrong, every gesture too calculated. Helen watched her like a jeweler examining a suspicious diamond, searching for flaws. The wedding, Helen said abruptly. We'll need to plan something appropriate. Small, tasteful. St. Patrick's Cathedral, perhaps. City Hall, Nathan interrupted. We want something intimate. Just immediate family. Helen's expression hardened. Absolutely not. The Ashfords do not get married at City Hall like common. Mother. Nathan's voice carried warning. This is our decision. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Olivia watched mother and son engage in a silent battle of wills, years of family dynamics playing out in a locked gaze. Finally, Helen looked away, but her smile was sharp. Of course, darling. Whatever makes you happy. She turned to Olivia. I hope you understand what you're joining. The Ashford name carries certain expectations. Responsibility. Tradition. Discretion. The word discretion landed like a threat. Dinner was worse. Nathan's father, Robert Ashford, barely acknowledged Olivia's existence, treating her with the vague politeness one might show a waiter. His sister, Caroline, asked pointed questions about Olivia's education, her visa status, her career prospects, each question designed to emphasize the gap between their worlds. Throughout it all, Nathan played his role perfectly, the attentive fiancé, protective but not overbearing, comfortable in his family's world but choosing to stand with Olivia. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it reminded her that this was all performance. He was good at pretending. What else might he be pretending about? The wedding nobody expected. They were married on a Tuesday morning in a judge's chambers downtown, with Rebecca and Patricia as witnesses. Olivia wore a simple white dress she'd bought at a vintage shop in Brooklyn, elegant but affordable, the kind of thing that wouldn't look ridiculous in photos but wouldn't haunt her closet with memories of fake romance. Nathan wore a navy suit, no tie, his concession to the casual nature of the ceremony. The judge, a practical woman in her 60s, read the vows with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Do you, Nathan James Ashford, take Olivia Maria Torres to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Olivia Maria Torres, take Nathan James Ashford to be your lawfully wedded husband? The words stuck in her throat for a moment. This was real. Legally, permanently real for at least 2 years. She looked at Nathan, his expression neutral, businesslike, as if they were signing a mortgage instead of vows. I do. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Neither of them moved. The judge raised an eyebrow. It's traditional, but optional. Nathan leaned in, his hand gentle on Olivia's elbow, and pressed a brief, chaste kiss to her lips. It was over in a second, professional, appropriate, completely devoid of feeling. But his lips were warm, and Olivia felt her heartbeat stutter unexpectedly. Then it was over. They signed papers, thanked the judge, and walked out into the bright September morning as Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. Rebecca handed them an envelope. Wedding present from the office. They don't know the truth, obviously. They think you're adorable together. Inside was a gift certificate to an expensive restaurant and a card signed by Nathan's entire company, full of congratulations and hearts. What do we do with this? Olivia asked. Nathan pocketed it. We use it. We have to be seen together. Might as well eat well while we're at it. Your mother is going to kill you when she finds out we did this without her, Olivia said. She'll survive. She's more upset about losing control than the actual wedding. Nathan studied her across the table. You can still back out. We haven't filed the immigration paperwork yet. You could walk away. Could you? He considered this. No. I've made a commitment. Then so have I. They finished lunch in silence, two strangers bound by law and desperation, neither quite sure what they'd just done. That evening, Olivia moved her belongings into the Tribeca penthouse. It didn't take long, she didn't own much. Her clothes fit in 3 suitcases. Her tools and materials went into the studio Nathan had prepared. Her entire life, reduced to boxes that barely filled one corner of his massive apartment. Nathan showed her to her room, the master bedroom, ironically. I'll take the guest room, he said. You should have the better space. This is weird, Olivia said. All of this is weird. It's business. We'll adjust. He hesitated at the door. There's a charity gala next week. Art collectors, investors. We need to make our first public appearance as a couple. Rebecca will help you prepare. Prepare? Right clothes, right conversation. Think of it as research for a role. He almost smiled. You'll do fine. You're already more genuine than half the people who'll be there. After he left, Olivia sat on the enormous bed in her new room and called Diego. He answered on the second ring, music blaring in the background. Hey! I've been trying to reach you for days. What's going on? Olivia took a breath. I got married. The music stopped abruptly. You what? I met someone. Nathan. It happened fast, but I'm happy. The lie tasted bitter. I'm sending you photos. She texted him one of the pictures Rebecca had taken outside the courthouse, Nathan's arm around her, both of them smiling. It looked real. That was the terrifying part. It looked completely real. Diego's response came immediately, he better treat you right or I'm coming to New York. Congrats, sis. You deserve this. Olivia set down the phone and looked around the room that was now legally hers. Through the window, the city glittered with possibility and promise. She'd gotten what she wanted, safety, security, the chance to keep creating. So why did she feel like she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life? 3 months into the marriage, Olivia realized the exact moment everything changed. It wasn't during a romantic dinner or a tender moment. It was a Tuesday night, and she was in her studio, wrestling with a particularly stubborn piece of steel that refused to bend the way she wanted. Try heating it first. She jumped, dropping her tools. Nathan stood in the doorway, tie loosened, jacket slung over his shoulder. He looked exhausted. There'd been some crisis at work that had kept him at the office for 16-hour days. I didn't hear you come in, she said. You were cursing at the metal in Spanish. Very creative cursing, by the way. He walked closer, studying her work in progress. What is it? I don't know yet. Something about transformation. About how pressure changes us into something different than what we started as. She grabbed a water bottle, suddenly self-conscious. They'd been living together for months, maintaining polite distance, perfect roommates playing perfect spouses in public. But lately, something had shifted. Small things. Nathan started making coffee the way she liked it without asking. She'd learned to recognize his footsteps, his moods, the subtle tells that meant work had gone badly. They'd developed rhythms, routines, a strange intimacy that felt dangerous because it wasn't part of the contract. "The gala this weekend," Nathan said. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. I can make an excuse. We had a deal. I show up, smile pretty, play the devoted wife. It's more than that now though, isn't it?" He met her eyes. "You're not just playing anymore." The honesty in his voice made her throat tight. He was right. Somewhere between the staged photos and the practiced conversations, between learning his coffee order and the way he read the newspaper at breakfast, she'd stopped acting. "Neither are you," she said quietly. Nathan moved closer, close enough that she could see the fatigue in his eyes, the slight stubble on his jaw because he'd been too busy to shave that morning. This wasn't supposed to happen. What wasn't? This. Us. You. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I had a plan. 2 years, clean break, everyone walks away satisfied. But you've taken over my apartment, my routine, my thoughts. I come home and listen for you working in here. I buy groceries based on what you like. I actually care whether you had a good day." Olivia's heart pounded. "Nathan. I know this breaks the contract. I know it's unprofessional and complicated and probably the worst business decision I've ever made." He laughed. "I know this breaks the contract. I know it's unprofessional and complicated and probably the worst business decision I've ever made." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "But I need you to know that when I touch your hand at these events, when I stand close to you for photos, I'm not acting anymore. I haven't been acting for months." The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and risk. "Your mother will lose her mind," Olivia said finally. "My mother can accept it or not. That's her choice." He stepped closer. "But this is mine. You're my choice. Not because I need a wife for appearances. Not because of any contract. Just because somewhere between City Hall and now, you became the most important person in my life." Olivia set down her tools with shaking hands. "This is terrifying. Completely." Nathan smiled, a real smile, not the practiced version he used in public. "But I'm done pretending I don't feel this. The question is, what do you feel?" What did she feel? Everything. Terror and joy and a fierce protectiveness for this strange life they'd built. She'd fallen in love with the way he left notes on the fridge, the way he defended her art to collectors who didn't understand it, the way he'd learned to make kiloquails because she mentioned missing home. She'd fallen in love with his intelligence, his dry humor, the gentleness he hid behind corporate armor. She'd fallen in love with her contract husband. "I feel," she said carefully, "like I want to renegotiate our terms." "Such as?" "No more separate rooms. No more pretending in private. And definitely no expiration date." Nathan's smile widened. "I can work with those terms." He kissed her then, not the brief professional kiss from their wedding, but something real and deep and full of months of suppressed want. Olivia's hands found his shoulders, his hair, pulling him closer as years of careful control shattered between them. "The truth comes out." Helen Ashford discovered the truth the way wealthy people always did, through gossip, money, and a private investigator. She arrived at the penthouse on a Saturday morning, unannounced, armed with a folder full of evidence. Olivia was making breakfast when the doorbell rang. Nathan was still in bed, their bed now, the guest room converted into storage for Olivia's art supplies. "Mrs. Ashford," Olivia said, her stomach sinking. "We weren't expecting you." Helen swept past her into the living room, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood. "I'm sure you weren't. Where's my son?" Still asleep. It's early. Wake him. Now. 10 minutes later, they sat in the living room like defendants facing trial. Nathan, hastily dressed, held Olivia's hand, not for show this time, but for strength. Helen threw the folder onto the coffee table. Papers spilled out, their contract, immigration documents, records of their City Hall wedding, even the original letter threatening Olivia's deportation. A marriage of convenience, Helen said, her voice ice. A business transaction. You made a fool of me, Nathan. Of this entire family. I did what I needed to do, Nathan replied evenly. To secure your CEO position through fraud. Do you know what the board will do when they find out? What the media will do? Helen turned to Olivia. And you? Did you really think you could just buy your way into this country, into this family, with some little contract? Olivia felt Nathan tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. You're right. I was desperate, and I accepted an arrangement that was ethically questionable at best. But I've kept every condition of our agreement. I've attended your functions, learned your world, played my part perfectly. Played being the operative word. Yes. At first. Olivia stood, meeting Helen's gaze directly. But something happened that wasn't in the contract. I fell in love with your son. Not with his money or his name or his connections. With him. The man who reads the newspaper backwards, who can't cook to save his life, who donates to art programs for underprivileged kids and never tells anyone. The man who listens when I talk about my work like it actually matters. Nathan stood beside her. Mother, I don't care what the board thinks. I don't care about the CEO position if it means losing Olivia. She's not a business transaction anymore. She's my wife. My real wife. And if you can't accept that, then we have nothing more to discuss. Helen stared at them both, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched painfully. Then, unexpectedly, she sat down, some of the steel leaving her posture. I know this breaks the contract. I know it's unprofessional and complicated and probably the worst business decision I've ever made. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. But I need you to know that when I touch your hand at these events, when I stand close to you for photos, I'm not acting anymore. I haven't been acting for months. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and risk. Your mother will lose her mind, Olivia said finally. My mother can accept it or not. That's her choice. He stepped closer. But this is mine. You're my choice. Not because I need a wife for appearances. Not because of any contract. Just because somewhere between City Hall and now, you became the most important person in my life. Olivia set down her tools with shaking hands. This is terrifying. Completely. Nathan smiled, a real smile, not the practiced version he used in public. But I'm done pretending I don't feel this. The question is, what do you feel? What did she feel? Everything. Terror and joy and a fierce protectiveness for this strange life they'd built. She'd fallen in love with the way he left notes on the fridge, the way he defended her art to collectors who didn't understand it, the way he'd learned to make kiloquiles because she mentioned missing home. She'd fallen in love with his intelligence, his dry humor, the gentleness he hid behind corporate armor. She'd fallen in love with her contract husband. I feel, she said carefully, like I want to renegotiate our terms. Such as? No more separate rooms. No more pretending in private. And definitely no expiration date. Nathan's smile widened. I can work with those terms. He kissed her then, not the brief professional kiss from their wedding, but something real and deep and full of months of suppressed want. Olivia's hands found his shoulders, his hair, pulling him closer as years of careful control shattered between them. The truth comes out. Helen Ashford discovered the truth the way wealthy people always did, through gossip, money, and a private investigator. She arrived at the penthouse on a Saturday morning, unannounced, armed with a folder full of evidence. Olivia was making breakfast when the doorbell rang. Nathan was still in bed, their bed now, the guest room converted into storage for Olivia's art supplies. "Mrs. Ashford," Olivia said, her stomach sinking. "We weren't expecting you." Helen swept past her into the living room, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood. "I'm sure you weren't. Where's my son?" "Still asleep." "It's early. Wake him. Now." 10 minutes later, they sat in the living room like defendants facing trial. Nathan, hastily dressed, held Olivia's hand, not for show this time, but for strength. Helen threw the folder onto the coffee table. Papers spilled out, their contract, immigration documents, records of their City Hall wedding, even the original letter threatening Olivia's deportation. "A marriage of convenience," Helen said, her voice ice. "A business transaction. You made a fool of me, Nathan. Of this entire family." "I did what I needed to do," Nathan replied evenly. "To secure your CEO position through fraud. Do you know what the board will do when they find out? What the media will do?" Helen turned to Olivia. "And you? Did you really think you could just buy your way into this country, into this family, with some little contract?" Olivia felt Nathan tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. "You're right. I was desperate, and I accepted an arrangement that was ethically questionable at best. But I've kept every condition of our agreement. I've attended your functions, learned your world, played my part perfectly." Played being the operative word. "Yes. At first." Olivia stood, meeting Helen's gaze directly. "But something happened that wasn't in the contract. I fell in love with your son. Not with his money or his name or his connections. With him. The man who reads the newspaper backwards, who can't cook to save his life, who donates to art programs for underprivileged kids and never tells anyone. The man who listens when I talk about my work like it actually matters." Nathan stood beside her. "Mother, I don't care what the board thinks. I don't care about the CEO position if it means losing Olivia. She's not a business transaction anymore. She's my wife. My real wife. And if you can't accept that, then we have nothing more to discuss." Helen stared at them both, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched painfully. Then, unexpectedly, she sat down, some of the steel leaving her posture. "Do you know why I pushed so hard for you to marry, Nathan?" she asked quietly. "Your father and I, we married for love. Completely inappropriate match, he was in law school, I was a secretary. Our something real." She looked at Olivia. "I wanted stability for you, yes. But more than that, I wanted you to feel what your father and I felt. I just forgot that you can't engineer that feeling." "Mom," Nathan started. "Let me finish." Helen straightened. "This contract arrangement was foolish and potentially illegal. But looking at you both now, the way you hold hands when you think no one's watching, the way you defend each other." She almost smiled. "That's not acting." "No," Olivia said. "It's not." Helen gathered her papers. "The board meeting is in 3 weeks. They'll vote on Nathan's promotion. I imagine this information would be quite damaging if it came out." Olivia's blood ran cold. Nathan's hand tightened on hers. "However," Helen continued, "I've always believed that people deserve a chance to correct their mistakes. If I were to learn, hypothetically, that this marriage began for practical reasons but evolved into something genuine, would consider that growth rather than deception." She stood. "I suggest you renew your vows. Properly this time. With family present. Make it real in every sense that matters." She walked to the door, then paused. "Olivia, I'm hosting a charity lunch on Tuesday. I expect you there. Bring your portfolio." There are collectors I'd like you to meet. Artists shouldn't starve while building their careers. After she left, Olivia and Nathan sat in stunned silence. Did your mother just give us her blessing? Olivia asked. I think she did. Nathan pulled her close. She also basically demanded we get married again. We're already married. Then we'll get married better. He kissed her forehead. What do you say? Want to marry me again, but mean it this time? Olivia laughed, the tension finally breaking. I meant it the first time. I just didn't know it yet. The wedding they chose. 6 months later, they stood in a small garden in Brooklyn, surrounded by people who actually mattered. Diego had flown in from Mexico, bringing their parents. Rebecca stood as Olivia's maid of honor. Even Helen was there, wearing cream-colored silk and an almost genuine smile. This time, Olivia wore a dress she'd designed herself, simple white cotton with embroidered birds taking flight across the bodice, a nod to the sculpture that had brought them together. Nathan wore his navy suit, no tie, just like the first wedding. But everything else was different. The vows they wrote weren't about legal obligation but about choice. About choosing each other every day despite the complications, the cultural differences, the fact that they'd started as strangers playing roles. I thought I needed control, Nathan said, his voice steady but his hands shaking slightly as he held hers. I thought I could contract my way through life, keep everything neat and predictable. Then you spilled paint on my briefcase and told me art was memory, not merchandise. You made me feel things I'd spent years avoiding. You made me want to be someone worth coming home to. Olivia blinked back tears. I thought I needed safety. A visa, a contract, a guarantee. But what I really needed was someone who saw me, not as a problem to solve or a talent to exploit, but as a person. You gave me space to create, encouraged my dreams, learned to make terrible kiloquails just because I was homesick. She smiled through tears. You became my home. When they kissed this time, it was different from City Hall, deeper, more certain, witnessed by people who knew the whole messy truth and celebrated them anyway. At the reception, held in a renovated warehouse filled with Olivia's sculptures, Diego cornered her during the dancing. So, he said, you going to tell me what really happened? Olivia looked at her brother, at his knowing smile, and made a decision. It started as a contract. I needed immigration help. He needed a wife for appearances. We signed papers and lied to everyone. I know. She stared at him. What? Please. You called me 3 days after meeting him, suddenly married, claiming it was love at first sight. I'm not an idiot. Diego grinned. But I watched you, heard how you talked about him when you forgot to pretend. You fell for him hard. And looking at how he watches you? He fell harder. You're not angry we lied? I'm glad you found something real, even if you found it the weirdest way possible. He hugged her tight. Besides, anyone who makes you this happy gets my approval. Even if he can't dance salsa to save his life. Across the room, Nathan was indeed failing spectacularly at salsa, guided patiently by Olivia's mother. He caught Olivia's eye and mouthed, "Help me," while her mother laughed. Rebecca appeared at Olivia's elbow with champagne. You know, I told him that sculpture was perfect for his office. I knew he'd fall for the artist. You planned this? Please. I just arranged the gallery introduction. The rest of this chaos was all you two. She clinked glasses with Olivia. Welcome to the family. It's weird, but you'll fit right in. The ending that was really a beginning. 2 years to the day after they'd signed their contract in Patricia's office, Olivia and Nathan sat in that same law office. Patricia set the original agreement between them. So, she said, the contract term has expired. Legally, you're free to terminate the marriage as planned. Olivia would receive the agreed-upon settlement and maintain her residency status. Neither of them reached for the termination papers Patricia had prepared. Or, Patricia continued, her expression softening, you could do nothing. Let the contract expire and continue as you are. Actually married. Actually in love. Imagine that. Nathan took Olivia's hand. I vote for option 2. Seconded, Olivia said. She looked at the contract that had started everything, pages of legal jargon that had somehow transformed into a real relationship. Should we burn it? Dramatic closure? Absolutely not, Patricia said, snatching the papers. This goes in my strangest cases that actually worked file. You two are my favorite story. Outside the office, Manhattan bustled with spring energy. Olivia's latest exhibition was opening that evening, her first solo show at a major gallery. Nathan had insisted on closing his office early to help her set up. Do you ever regret it? Olivia asked as they walked toward the gallery. The contract, the lies, all of it. Nathan considered this seriously. I regret the lies. I regret making you uncomfortable at family dinners. I regret that we wasted months pretending when we could have been real from the start. But I don't regret you. I don't regret us. Sometimes the wrong path leads to the right place. He stopped, pulled her close on the busy sidewalk as people flowed around them. You asked me once what I saw in your sculpture, the birds breaking free. I see you. Breaking free from fear, from limitation, from everything that tried to keep you small. You're the bravest person I know. I signed a contract with a stranger to avoid deportation. That's not brave, that's desperate. No, what's brave is that you made it real. You could have kept your distance, played it safe, collected your money and left. Instead, you chose to feel everything, risk everything. You chose love over safety. He kissed her forehead. That's terrifying. That's brave. At the gallery, Olivia's sculptures filled the space, birds in flight, metal transformed into movement, every piece telling a story of breaking free. The centerpiece was her largest work yet, 2 figures, abstract but clearly together, metal forms intertwined in ways that showed both independence and connection. She'd titled it, The Contract. Nathan stood before it for a long time while Olivia watched him, nervous for his reaction. It's us, he said finally. Yes. It's perfect. The gallery filled with collectors, critics, friends. Olivia watched Nathan work the room, no longer the cold corporate shark but someone warm, engaged, genuinely proud of his wife's work. Helen arrived with a group of wealthy donors, steering them toward Olivia's pieces with the skill of a seasoned saleswoman. Your mother's selling my sculptures, Olivia whispered to Nathan. She's decided your family. This is what she does for family. He smiled. Also, she's getting a commission. Diego called from Mexico, his video call displaying him and their parents crowded around a phone screen. We're watching the live stream. Mom wants to know if you've eaten. And if Nathan is treating you right. He is, Olivia assured them. Tell Mom I'll call tomorrow. As the night wound down and the last guests departed, Olivia and Nathan stood alone among her sculptures. 2 years ago, she'd been a desperate artist facing deportation. He'd been a controlled businessman needing appearances. They'd signed papers and told lies and built something fake. And somehow, impossibly, they'd made it real. So, Nathan said, pulling her into his arms, what's our next contract? 5 more years? 10? Lifetime with option to renew? Olivia laughed. How about we skip the contract and just see what happens? That sounds terrifyingly unplanned. Good. We could use some chaos. After all, as someone once told me, chaos can't be manufactured. It has to be real. He kissed her, and it was real, no audience, no performance, just 2 people who'd found each other the strangest way possible and decided to stay. The gallery lights dimmed. The city glowed beyond the windows. And Olivia realized that sometimes the best things in life aren't the ones you plan for. They're the ones that find you when you're desperate enough to take a chance, foolish enough to sign a contract with a stranger, and brave enough to turn that contract into something true.